Hi there. Today I'm going to take us through the extra controls and media center functions on your new electric Kia Soul. The Kia Soul EV has got lots of functions and I'm going to try and go through as many as possible now. To begin with, I'm going to go through the driver-facing controls, starting with the steering wheel controls. Cruise control and speed limiter functions are here on the right-hand side of the steering wheel. This button here is your speed limiter button. This button here is your cruise control button. We'll start off with the speed limiter. So obviously press that to activate it. Set will the minus button, the bottom button will then activate it. And then you can use your plus and minus to alter your speed accordingly. Cancel then obviously overrides it, and then to resume where you left off, you just press resume. To cancel out completely out of either the cruise control or the speed limiter, you press the respective button. So to get rid of it, just do that. On the left hand side of the steering wheel, you've got your media controls. The mode button enables you to switch in between different medias, so radio stations, and sort of, I don't know whether you've got up something Bluetooth connected, or in my instance a USB stick. Then, fairly self-explanatory, you've got your volume controls up and down, and these buttons are for scrolling in between tracks or scrolling in between radio stations. Below this, you've got your telephone controls. Obviously the green one is to accept a call, and the red one is to hang up on a call. Then this one here is your voice controls button. You can use it to switch between radio stations, phone contacts for example, or navigate to certain addresses. Moving over to the right hand side of the steering wheel again, you have these buttons here which alter the screen display just here. First screen is your sort of eco driving screen. It can display either like an energy consumption sort of graphic, showing whether energy is going out of the battery or into the battery, depending on whether you're regen braking or not. Use this arrow button to sort of scroll down. Give that a press, it will then change screen. Then brings up an eco level screen, which I quite like. Going from level 1 up to level 8, depending on how economically you're driving at the time. The top button, the ones with the squares, will then switch to different screens. So if you look on the top of the screen here, so we start on the eco screen, then we move across to the sort of the driving screen. This one has sort of trip counters. Usually I can scroll between the different screens, so you've got an energy consumption figure which gives your current energy consumption. Then you've got sort of two trip-based screens. To reset those screens, you just hold the down button and then it will reset everything. So that's how you reset your trip counter. This just displays in the screen in front of you what you're playing or listening to. So as you've got USB, and if you can click mode, it will then switch to radio stations. Okay, next screen along just gives the car's idea of when a service is next due. With all these things, make sure you track the records for the car, which will trump what's set in the car, because not every service centre is going to remember to clear the counter on it. And then the last screen is some user settings. The Kia even has some different steering settings, which is a nice little touch. They're selected by this button at the bottom of the steering wheel here, and then it's displayed on the screen just behind there. So you can choose between normal, sport mode, or comfort mode, depending on how heavy you like the steering and what you think suits your particular driving style. Next to the two stalks behind the steering wheel, unlike most cars, they control the wipers and they control the headlights and indicators. The stalk on the right obviously controls your wipers. Push it down for a quick wipe, and then up gives you intermittent, and then on, and then faster. You can adjust the rate at which it wipes intermittently by turning the centre section up for faster. Then the end does your rear wipers, so one click up does intermittent, one above it does it constant. And then rear screen wash, you push the stalk away from you. And then front screen wash, pull it towards you. The stalk on the left obviously does your indicators and also controls your headlights. You turn the bit at the end, side lights, main beams, auto headlights, which is what I tend to leave it sort of set at. Then you've got you turn the bit in there, does fog lights, dipped and full. And then in terms of flashing, pull towards you for a quick flash, and then away from you, puts it on full main beams. Moving on now to this selection of buttons down to the right of the steering wheel. The one on the far right is for light dipping. This one obviously opens your charging flap and also can be pressed to disengage the cable lock. This button here overrides your charging timer profile if you have one set, and we'll move on to that a bit later on in the video. This is a nice one. This turns on your heated steering wheel. This turns off your traction control. This increases or decreases the illumination level on the media center screen. Got mood lights in the car which surround the speakers in the door cards. You can have it set to either off, so they're not illuminated. You can have it set to music and the lights change colour and pump along to the beat of the music, which is great. Or you can have it on mood lighting, in which case they just sort of fade in between a variety of colours. And the plus and minus button increases obviously the brightness of those lights. Before we move on to the actual media centre controls, I'll just quickly run through the heating and aircon controls. To turn the heating system on, you just press auto. Obviously the up and down does the temperatures up or down. That says about sort of 20 degrees. To turn it off, obviously you've got the off button there. These buttons adjust the fan speeds. Once you get the car to temperature, I think it's always important to have it doing as little work as possible, so have the fan speed down quite low. You've got your front and your rear screen demisters. Again, once the screens are clear, make sure to turn it off to preserve energy. You've also got this button here, which means the blowers will only blow on the driver's side, again to preserve energy. And the mode button adjusts the direction which the heat is blown, and this is shown on the top of the screen. The Kia's got heated seats, which is great. Obviously, you turn them on by doing that. Have it high or low or off. You've got the ability with your Kia Soul, electric Kia Soul that is, to set it to warm itself up at a certain time. For example, in the morning before you go to work. Warm itself up and defrost your windscreen. But you also have the ability to set a timer, so charge at certain times, for example, to take advantage of a cheap rate overnight tariff. Both of those are accessible by this button. So if I press this button, it brings up the timer screen. Obviously this is your climate control timer. To set it, just click on it, and then you just quite simply set the time you want it to come on. Say you go to work, leave for work at 7 o'clock in the morning. You can decide on the temperature you want to heat the car to. So perhaps a bit warmer than it needs to be, and you can even set it to defrost the front screen at the same time, which is great in winter. And then at the bottom here you'll select the days that you leave at a specific time. Then click OK, and then that will be set. So as long as your car is then plugged in, it will turn itself on before 7 o'clock in the morning just to get it up to temperature. On this same screen as well, you can do exactly the same for setting a charging profile. So say for example, I mean at the moment it's set to charge at any time, but to set it to charge, say to take advantage of a cheap overnight tariff, you'll set perhaps the charging to begin at 12 o'clock midnight, and you'll get it to do that on, I'll say every day of the week. Click OK. Now the car will only charge after midnight. Take advantage of your cheap overnight tariff. Obviously, to override all these things, you'll press that button to access this screen, and then click what's on to off. The last button we need to go through before we move on to the actual media center itself is this EV button down here. So yeah, the EV button brings up this screen, which I actually find a really useful screen, mainly because it's where you can get displayed the actual percentage of charge in the battery. I find that a really useful thing to look at because the range prediction that's shown here and on the dashboard screen is not entirely accurate. You know, it looks at previous driving history and I find it tends to underpredict. So I find that a really useful figure to look at. Other things on the screen here, obviously if you press this, is quite useful as well if you're out and about. Brings up a list of local or nearby charging stations, and obviously you can then sort of press on them to program them into your sat nav. You've also got EV settings just here, which enables you to set the parameters at which your sort of low energy warnings will kind of come on. I always sort of set that to quite low. This is just another button to access that charging timer screen, which we've just been through. This one's quite nice. It brings up a nice sort of tree-based graphic that, depending on how economically you're driving, depends how much of the tree illuminates. Obviously this figure will also change and runs from 1 up to 8 depending on how economically you're driving. At 8 the tree is all nice and full of lights, and it also gives a running energy consumption figure just there as well. So yeah, the EV button is a nice button. It tends to be a screen I'm looking at quite regularly, especially just to see that battery percentage. This is the Kia's touchscreen media center. It is a touchscreen, however there are physical buttons all around it and most of the controls can be accessed via those. First off, we'll do the buttons on the right hand side. Top one is your map button. Give that a press, it brings your sat nav map up onto full screen. This little dial at the bottom allows you to sort of zoom in and out. And then obviously the home button here will then return it back to this home screen. I'm going to move on to showing you the navigation system, which is the next button down. So this nav button brings up the car's sat nav menu. To program in a destination, you just click on address and then you'll put in the postcode of where you want to go. We'll put in here BA3 4SL. There we go. Then you click OK. Then you click set as destination. And then you click start guidance. To cancel a destination, you use this little menu button down on the bottom left hand side. It brings up various options, and one of them is stop guidance. You view the map in different ways, the traffic information, and things like that. If you press the nav button again, it will bring up the nav screen again, and obviously you can use this to also look for interesting things like charging stations, points of interest. You've got different route options in there as well, so you can set things according to fastest route or shortest route, depending on what you prefer. And then favourites is where you can store all your favourite addresses really. So we've obviously got home set, so to say to install your work address, you just click on that, put in the address which you'll use here because obviously that's a work address, click OK, then click OK, and then that's done. It's saved as Office. To find your recent destinations, actually in the Kia they refer to it as previous points. So what I think most sat navs is recent destinations. And that's where you'll find places you've previously been to. The next button down is this information button here, which brings up the car's quick guide, which actually is surprisingly basic. You know, it really is. Obviously your main manual's better. In fact, probably this video is a lot more useful, but it's there anyway. You might find that helpful. This climate button just brings up what you've got the climate control set to. And then these buttons here, if you want to use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and you've got your phone plugged in, you can then use these buttons to access and get that set up. This button here is the settings button. Change a variety of things through here. There's a navigation settings. A variety of things you can change in there, however most of those you would probably just choose to leave set how they are. The sound button, you've actually got a Harman Kardon sound system in here, and the Kia's got a great system for adjusting the setup. Equalizer is where you would, you've got different overall settings, but you've also got this little settings cog down here where you can use to just adjust the bass and treble. Display is a little bit like the sound. You've got a surprisingly large number of things you can change on here, like in brightness you can change, and you can even adjust the kind of color balance within the actual screen itself. So arguably more than is necessary, but it's a nice little touch. Phone menu, it's you can adjust various settings in here. You can even pick some of the car's library of ringtones instead of using your own phone ringtone, which is a bit of fun. You can, through Bluetooth connection, if you've got multiple phones connected, you can prioritize them in a certain order. So if your passengers are also connected to the car, yours can be the priority one. But we'll move on to phone and pairing your phone up a little bit later on in the video. Voice recognition button. As you know, I'm not a fan of voice recognition systems, so there's nothing really useful in there. It's just the extent to which the car talks to you while you're doing it. Clock. I was set to GPS time on, which just means the car will automatically set, but you can obviously set it to daylight saving time manually if you prefer. DivX, you can play movies through the DivX system, through the media center. Obviously that would warrant a video in itself and is not something you tend to do. And auxiliary, you've got some different auxiliary setups should you need them. One last thing, you've got this display off button will switch off the display here. Equally, you've got this sleep button just here. Give that a press, it will turn off that media screen. I know most people prefer to have it on, however occasionally people do ask, how can you turn it off because they find it distracting. So you've got that button or that button there. On the left hand side of the media center is your media controls. Obviously you've got your volume controls just here. Press that to turn off whatever you're playing. I won't turn it on because there probably will be something playing. These buttons here you can use to scroll between tracks or to scroll between radio stations. Obviously all these controls are also on the steering wheel. Top button, obviously radio button, fairly self-explanatory. It will bring up your radio stations. If you wanted to store a radio station, you would press presets button with your chosen station playing, and then you press all Christmas songs. We'll get rid of that. So to replace Christmas songs with Planet Rock, it seems, you just hold that button there. To bring up your radio station list, you just press that menu list there. The media button just brings up whatever's playing on your media. In this instance it's a pen stick playing. If you press it again, it'll bring up your other media menu, where if you've got other things plugged in, for example Bluetooth phone or something through an auxiliary input, you can select it from here. The last button on the left hand side is the phone button, so we're going to show you now how to connect your phone to the car. To pair your phone, obviously you press the phone button here, and this screen will come up asking if you'd like to pair a new device. Click on yes. Obviously the Kia is now searching for your phone. So within your phone, go to search for other devices, and this has just come up. Press pair on the screen here. Click allow on there. Now if we press this button here, got Reese's phone on there, but you can access your contacts on your phone from there. You can store favourites from here by just adding new and clicking from there. Various things like that. So yeah, nice and simple to use. Last of all, on the media center are these few buttons here, which are actually on the touchscreen. This eco button is just a duplicate of this button here, so we've already been through that. Go back to the home screen. All menus, it is pretty much self-explanatory. It's another way to access all these other menus that we've been through. So if you prefer using the touchscreen, you can use them there. Personally, I prefer using buttons, so I use them around the outside. My menu is kind of like a favourites menu, so if you want a quick menu to get to some of your favourite things, it's actually a good place to kind of go. To set it up how you want it, you just click on Edit, and then you just drag across things you want to go into there. So it might be the sat nav, maybe. Obviously we've got Android Auto as well as Apple CarPlay, but you see what I mean. You just put over there the things that you actually want to have and access regularly. Last of all, I've got a couple of little extra buttons to show you. On the rear view mirror, there's a little power button here. This is for your auto dimming. You can have it off or on. Why you would have it off, I don't know, but you have it on or have it turned on. The rear view mirror will auto dim to stop you being dazzled by other people's headlights. The very final button is this one here. If you don't like the beepers, press that. That will turn the beepers off. Again, most occasions I think you will leave the beepers on to help you out when you're parking. I hope that was helpful. There's lots you can do with your new Kia Soul. However, it's got one of my favourite sort of media and infotainment systems. Over time, we'll also be cutting that down into little bite-sized chunks that we'll be adding to our video library as well. But thank you for watching. Remember, at the end of the phone if you'd like any further help.